All right, everybody. Good morning and welcome to RVAsec. Q and I wanted to do this speech. It's kind of a combination of a couple different speeches that we've given over the years. And when we were sitting down and kind of visiting about what has been good, what has stuck, and what hasn't stuck, we found that this kind of side of the topics was something that we thought would be valuable that you all might enjoy. First off, I want to start by thanking Jake, Chris, and everybody else that is helping make this possible, RVAsec and these other events. They're huge. It takes an insane amount of work. So for all the volunteers, Jake and Chris, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much.
All right, what the scope? Shit, my consultant and client says. As Luke mentioned, I'm Q, Qasim. I'm the director of cybersecurity at Aviana Healthcare. We're a healthcare home hospice company. I've been in offensive security and cybersecurity field for about over a decade now. A lot of experience in consulting. Saw a lot of stuff there, and then moved into more client role. And now I'm seeing things from the other side, getting bombarded with spam. The moment I changed my title on LinkedIn, it was like spam all over the place. I was like, come on, people. If I don't ask for you, I'm not buying it. I also do a lot of teaching, and looking forward to just talking through this topic and having a conversation with you all. Catch us afterwards. We're going to be downstairs at the Blue Bastion Idle Integration booth, and downstairs also, and just around the conference. Luke?
Yeah, thanks, Q. I am Luke McOmie. Most of the industry knows me as Pyro. I'm the Vice President of Offensive Security with Ideal Integrations in Blue Bastion. Done a bunch of stuff for a long time over the years. But you know, one of the things that I really enjoy doing are going out and doing these conferences. In fact, this is the 6th event I've done in 5 weeks, and I always find it just an honor to be able to go out and kind of share thoughts and get new ideas from other people. So again, like Q said, please come visit us afterwards if you want to go a little deeper into anything we talk about up here. So the agenda, you know, Q and I were talking about why do we want to do this talk. We're going to step through all the different shit we've heard people say, both from both sides. Again, you're going to hear what I'm hearing from the customer. You'll hear from Q what he's hearing from people like me. and then we'll do a slide on really what can we do about some of these things.
So why this talk? Because we are tired, pissed off. Anything else we should all be? I mean, come on. Y'all hear shit from clients and consultants. How do you feel about it? Everybody else pissed off? Everybody else tired of hearing things like, well, we can't do that because it's not on the paper, but it is on the paper and you just didn't read page number 7. Lack of transparency, we'll talk about some of that later. And really, when I was a consultant, I saw a lot of this. I'm seeing less of this on the client side because I'm the one spending money. But before, when I was on the consultant side, I saw a lot of people spending money on shit that wasn't really useful to them. There's a million vendors doing a million different things, and not all of them are useful to you. So what is useful? How do you identify that? And there's lots of language problems, bad practices. There's stuff that consulting companies are doing or clients are doing, and they're just not talking to each other. They're talking at each other. They're not understanding each other. So
I was at ThoughtCon like 3 days ago, 2 days ago, whatever it was, and I had mentioned this in the speech that I was doing on the stage. It was the speech was called "Gray is the New Black," and it was a bunch of us old gray-bearded guys talking about get off my lawn and how this stuff just hasn't changed over 30, 40 years. But the funny part was that when we got done with the speech, we were sitting outside at like the gala and having drinks and dinner, and we started going back and forth talking about all the different ways you could describe a pen test. So it's pen test, vulnerability assessment, all the different language that you hear people, mix together, and it became a game while we were sitting there eating on who could come up with one that hadn't been said yet. But it's a great example of the fact that, we'll get into it deeper, but people we get these buzzwords in our mind. People tell us that this stuff is something we should be doing or that it's something important, and we kind of latch onto it. And year over year, we watch people go about doing this work, but they're not necessarily doing anything that's going to be meaningful or valuable to them.
Yeah, that's you.
So it's not in the scope. This is what I hear a lot, right? When my team comes to me and they say, hey, we've got a great pen test, we're in the middle of this right now, we just found all these different vulnerabilities and weaknesses, but the client won't let us touch it. And it's like, why? Well, they say it's not in scope. And it's, okay, I understand that, but when they signed the statement of work, they said that we're going after this entire domain. What are they doing, like, pulling things out right now? What's really driving this? Is it because it's something that's so mission critical and so sensitive that there's just no way that they can risk potentially having it go down? Or is it truly they're worried about what we're going to find? One of the big things that I see with the not in scope thing being driven is that people get hung up in their head about what they should test and not test. The answer is you should test everything. I get that that's not feasible in some situations, but you should always enter kind of the mindset and going into the engagement with the plan that you're going to holistically test the entire environment. Because if you were to be compromised, that's exactly what an attacker is going to do. They're not going to sit there and listen to your legal team tell you that you're only allowed to look at this one specific segment within a PCI network, and that's, you know, overall maybe 3 to 5% of the environment, and somehow that's supposed to accurately represent a pen test for a legal requirement that they have to do once a year to check a box. Yeah, really weak. One of the other things that we often find on here is that, you know, the people who are defining the scope for these engagements sometimes, especially with larger customers, are not the right people who should be defining the scope. For instance, a CFO, a CSO, and your lawyers should not be the people telling you where things live or where things could go potentially bump in the night, right? You need to be talking to the people that are hands-on keyboard, that are maintaining the environment, that understand the network, that understand the different services, the applications, the cloud, whatever it is that you guys are doing. Those are the people that need to be involved in the scoping, because they're the only ones that can actually accurately tell you what's there and what needs to be looked at. The moment you get lawyers involved, lawyers start looking at this stuff, especially when it's offensive security, and they're like, wait, shit, you're paying them to do what? They're gonna break things? We may not be able to do business, and it's this whole non-realistic view of what we're doing, how we do it, and why we do it, because they don't understand. So it's kind of your job as the middleware, as the customer, or as the person that's buying these services, to make sure that either yourself or the partner that you're working with can go in front of these different audiences, in front of these different executive leaders, and be able to speak to what's going to be valuable and why you're doing this in the first place. What's going to be the return on the investment? I think the other thing I'd mention there, and actually Q, you might be a good one jumping on this one, is the reality check, the maturity and lack thereof it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as Luke mentioned, a lot of times the scope is defined by people who don't necessarily know where the dirty laundry is, or they may be wanting to hide that dirty laundry. You don't want insurance to find out about it. You don't want some of your own customers to find out about it. One of the things we started doing with these guys in the past, and I'm not trying to make it a sales conversation, I'm just kind of giving you an example. We do monthly red teaming. These guys come in, we have no idea when they're gonna come in. One of my employees, he knows, he's working directly with them, but they're gonna come in and they're gonna get into our environment whichever way they can. Could be a phishing email, they could show up physically, plug something in. Matt showed up one way, I love that one. One of the guys from this team showed up, and he had a page he wanted printed on a USB disk. And he was like, yeah, I'm here for Blue Passion, I'm here for a meeting, and I need something printed, but I can't find a printer. And he walks over to one of the service desk guys and has him print it. And it was a payload. And he got service desk guy to execute it. And that was just amazing. I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. That's the kind of stuff I want to see.
The best part is, if you remember, his guy was like, I don't know that I should put this in my machine. And it's like, you know, you're from like the red team, ha ha ha, like that's probably a bad idea. And it's like, yeah, it probably is, but he did it anyway.
Yeah.
You know.
So that resulted in some training. You know, our team is getting better as a result of those engagements. These guys are getting better as a result of those engagements. But we're getting to test our IR plan. So we're getting the reality check every month. And we don't necessarily know when that's going to happen. Versus if it was all planned out, everybody knew about it, then what ends up happening is people change passwords the day before. They start shutting down services the day before. And that kind of stuff just completely nullifies the value. So we like flexibility. If you're flexible in your scope, and if you work directly with your vendor, and I'm getting into like a few slides ahead, but work directly with your vendor, have that collaboration. And at conferences like this, talk to some other people who've done similar things. Like, what do you do? How have you done it? What's been the benefit of that? That's pretty useful.
I'll tell you the last one before we move off this slide on the maturity thing is challenge the providers that you're working with, or even your internal people, if these are for like programs that you're developing for your own security group, to actually have a focus on things that matter. One of the biggest issues I see, it happens to me all the time, is that people will hear that we're coming in to come do a pen test for them, and they'll look me up on the internet, and they'll see the shit that we've done in the books or the Tiger Team TV show or this other stuff. And a business will be like, oh yeah, we want you to do full scope red team, come at us every single way, drop through skylights, middle of the night, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you're a startup of 12 people, you have no physical presence, and like you're using OWA to run your entire business. What? It's like, don't pay for things that aren't gonna be valuable to you, that aren't gonna move the needle. Understand and be proud of where you're at, no matter where that is in the security journey, whether it's you guys are just getting started and you've never done it before, or you've got a whole dedicated team and it's been 20 plus years you've taken care of an organization. Do the things that are gonna move that needle and be the most valuable to you.
Oh my. Some of you may have heard this before on the client end. As a consultant, you may have done this before. I've done this before as a consultant. On the client end, I'm seeing why this may be right or wrong. Asking the client to disable their EDR, asking them to disable their WAF so we can do the pen test. There's ways of doing it in a collaborative effort. Usually the reason the consultant wants that disabled is because it's blocking them. It's doing its job. And by doing its job, it's making the consultant work harder. Now, could somebody spend 3-4 days bypassing the EDR and then do actual tests? Sure, but that's gonna cost me more money. So that's where the conversation is important. And what I usually like to do is I want you to test those controls. I want you to test the compensating controls I've got. I want you to be able to tell me how well my EDR did and how well my IR team did as a response to that. Even if it's a pen test. Pen test is not supposed to be stealthy and all, and that's fine. But I still want to see how well my controls do. How's my WAF doing? Did that see you coming in? Any of the block lists I've got, any of the firewalls I've got, are they reporting back? If I disable them, and you come and do the pen test, and then you write the report that says, we got in and we did so many crazy things, we got DA, we got all the data, and nobody saw us. Yeah, because you asked us to disable that shit. Right? So, one of the things we like to do is maybe the first few days, none of that stuff is disabled. It's all enabled. Go and see if you can get around it. If you can't, then we'll re-enable it. But I want you to put that in the report. The report needs to state that we had to disable or loosen our controls for you to do your job. Because that is how I'm gonna go back to my CFO, my CIO, and say, hey, look, the money you've been spending on shit, it's working. Now give me more. Because I can do this with this much money. Imagine what I can do with more money.
One of my favorite stories was, this is from years ago. Ryan Jones and I were working at a different business than we are now. Ryan's actually with us at Blue Bastion again. But we were at Alternative Technology, and we went in to go do a bank. And the bank had been very explicit about the fact, the IT people within the bank had been very explicit about the fact that we weren't allowed to do testing without them doing all this whitelisting and interactions with their MSP, because they didn't want to set off all these alerts and alarms and everything else. We said, fine, you should actually test, do this to validate that these controls work. Most of the time, may not be a surprise to the people in this room, but when we go out and do pen testing, it's in the single digits, like from a percentage standpoint, when MSPs actually detect us and stop us. That should frighten the shit out of you. Like, a lot of times we'll be completely done, report delivered, domain administrative credentials across the entire board, all the data dumped, and then a week later somebody will be like, hey, we just got a notice from the MSP that we may have been compromised, or that there may be an issue happening within our environment. And it's like, okay, how are they valuable? How much money are you spending a year? We've already taken everything out. But one of my favorite parts about that story was that we went and did the work after they had whitelisted us. And then the CSO, very technically astute person, somebody who's been involved in this industry for a very long time, walks in, he sits down, and he goes, they whitelisted you? And they go, yep, forced us to work under a whitelist. And he goes, yep, all of this is invalid. And literally got up and walked out of the meeting. And it was him not being angry at us. I didn't take it as a personal slight. It was him being very angry at the business for not listening to him. because he had paid for and wanted a real-world test so that they could validate and understand if the controls that they had been spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on were actually functional and working. And because of that whitelisting ask at the very start of the engagement, it nullified everything he was trying to achieve. But AI? Don't start that in this conference. I hear it in my sleep.
Idea for next year's slide deck, but AI.
Yeah, no.
Start with that.
So, yeah, so G-Mark, myself, Pete Shipley, Isaac, and Eric were all on stage doing the Gray's the New Black at ThoughtCon a few days ago. And while G-Mark and I were trying very hard to keep everything on the rails, Shipley decided that his answer every single time that anyone would say anything was, but AI! To the point of like annoyance on the stage. The beautiful thing is, by the time we got off the stage, it actually turned into a meme. So now it's a thing. So if you hear but AI, that's what I'm getting harassed with.
Next to you.
So from this side, right, when we go in and we talk to people and we're like, hey, you need to do static and dynamic analysis, you're writing code, you're publishing code, you have all these developers working for you, you've already told us that you guys really don't have much around SDLC or experience in this, do this testing. And they look at it and they go, holy shit, this dynamic and static analysis costs more than all the other services we're buying from you. Like the spend on this is ridiculous, right? And it's like, no. It's because we're having to go look for things that aren't signature driven. This isn't something where we're just going to throw some random scripts at it and tell you that it's secure or not. We're going to actually dedicate time to go deep into this. The response I'll often hear, especially from leadership people or folks that we're talking to at that point where we're trying to introduce our business, is we don't need that testing. We have a web application firewall. It already blocks all that. And it's like, you're wrong. It doesn't. and even scarier is the fact that your controls should never actually be your solution. The controls should be a layer in the overall program or the approach that you're taking to properly secure something. But if you write bad code, you've written bad code. It doesn't matter how much of a WAF you put in it. There's going to be ways to bypass that. There's going to be ways to be able to manipulate that. There's going to be ways that you can take advantage of it even. So don't let the controls get in the way of what you think that don't let the controls be the way that you define the security and your overall security presence. The sell it and forget it fallacy is probably my favorite one on here. I come from old-timey, long time ago, where everybody would just buy a firewall and install a firewall and say, we're protected from hackers. We have a firewall. They can't get in. And it's like, you have one control in one place doing one thing. That's not good enough. We still see this today. 2025 event I was at 3 weeks ago, there was a security provider there where literally in the vendor room, the sign that they had up was, we can solve all your security solutions. And it's like, okay, from marketing I understand that, but let's go talk to them. So I went and talked to them and it's like, no, look, we built this whole new AI platform. It'll find every vulnerability. It'll find every weakness, and it'll report on it. You don't even have to worry about it anymore. All that vulnerability scanning you're doing, those pen tests you're running, none of that's good because all that's point in time, and this is living. This happens every day. On the surface, it sounds great, right, from a marketing standpoint, but it's not real. It's not real. And I want to see AI get to that point. But when we did our work, it was, you can replicate about vendors, 8 hours. 8 hours of a pen test is kind of where AI is at this point. Like when you look at these things
they can do broadcast multicast protocols. The same shit that, what's his name, Marcello wrote a while ago. It was Death Star, Marcello and Dan wrote that.
Right.
That's all basically most of the AI tools are doing.
So don't get lost in the hype again. That was one of the big things we wanted to talk on this. The other one I love on here is the nobody wants to hack us. I cannot tell you the number of times when I'm sitting there talking to somebody who's called me, who's asking to buy security services from me because they have some kind of a requirement, and we'll be talking to them and we'll ask them, why are they doing this? And it's, compliance says I have to, or our insurance underwriter says we have to in order to maintain our cybersecurity policy or whatever. It's like, that's great. Why don't you do it just for best practices? Do it because it's the right thing to do. It's the right way to protect your clients, your business, your investments. And they'll say that to us. Nobody wants to hack me. We're too small. Nobody even knows we exist. And it's like, that has no relevance in today's world as far as how attackers and these access brokers buy, sell, and compromise computers. It's no longer about who your name is, it's about what resources you might have inside.
I'll add one more thing to this, especially to the set and forget. How many of you are actually alerting on things that WAF is blocking? Right? Or at least monitoring it, sending that data to a SIM. Because we often set up a WAF as just a layer in front of a web app. It's going to protect the web app, and that's about it. But that may actually be telling you about a pattern, about threat actors that are going after you. Or what is WAF not blocking that got through? So if you're not sending those logs to a SIM, if you're not monitoring your WAF, then that may just be one of those things you put up on a shelf and you forgot about it and left.
Yeah, the reality around this, and any of you who've worked in incident response or forensics know this, when you get hacked, you go back and you pull all the logs from everything, and you go look, and it's like, holy shit, they've been in our network for 6 months, and look at all this activity that's happened. Why didn't we see any of this? Oh, well, we didn't see it because it was something that had an ignore rule that was added a year and a half before the attack even happened that now negated where we would have had visibility to it. Yeah. Don't get in your own way. I like that. So he installed a screen door on a submarine. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna sit down for this one. This is an interesting one. I won't mention the name of the company. I was running a pentest team as a client, a major company. Don't do that. I was joking.
Here you go. Here you go, old man.
So this is what happens when you are a client. You say things and consultants make it happen. The show with a chair. I was running a pentest team internally at a healthcare organization, and we had a very large name, very expensive vendor come in and do a pentest. And we spent a lot of money with them. They spent a lot of time. They found some really cool stuff. And one of the findings, the most critical finding that gave them access to our domain controller as an unauthenticated user, they didn't really have any details on it. All it said was they gained access. Okay, but how? Well, we cannot tell you that because it's a 0 day and we don't want to burn it. Like, well, you know what else I don't want to burn? Money. So that resulted in a lot of conversation. Like, why are you not telling us how you got in? Well, we can't tell you because we want to use it again. Well, if you're going to use it again, what's our royalty on that? How much money do we make on you using that 0 day? So that turned into very much a legal conversation where we wanted our money back, and after a lot of back and forth, they gave us the details, and they also released that advisory through the vendor. But this is, I thought it was a very uncommon thing. It only happened to me. But after I mentioned it to a few people at conferences, it turns out this is not just a one-time thing. It's happened to quite a few people. When I look at a pen test report, and you should all, when you are in the conversations with your consultant, or salesperson, you should request a sample pen test report. When I look at a pen test report, I want to be educated. I want that pen test report to tell me how they got in, what did they do when they got in, and then I want to compare that to my IR teams and my SOC teams. What did you detect and what did you not detect? What did you do in response to that? So I want that detail in there. And then I want to be able to go to my infra team, my developers, my network team to fix that issue. If you don't have a recommendation in there that tells me what I need to do to fix that issue, then what's the point of me just hiring a bunch of people that's going to break shit and walk away? Right? I don't necessarily need you to tell me every command to run to fix things. If I told you where to click to do things in Microsoft World, by the time you did it, Microsoft will change the name of the tool, but it'll change instructions.
On the same note that you just said, you as the customer should be able to read my report and be able to replicate exactly what I did.
100%. Like, if you can give me the commands, that's even better, right? Help me replicate it. And then also guide me towards how to fix that issue. Give me that guidance. Do I need to reset passwords? Do I need to upgrade my version number? Do my developers need to go in and start using, what are the queries called? They just need to do better development. Let's just leave it at that. I haven't had enough Red Bull. But leaving me with a report that doesn't tell me what you did is a waste of money. I need to be educated from that report. That training, that education is a value add. If you don't have that, you're not going to work with me.
The other side of this coin too is that if I'm coming in as a consultancy and I find or discover O-Day while you are paying me to do that engagement, guess who owns that O-Day? Guess who owns that research? This has been legally proven in court more than once. You do, because you're the employer. You're paying for my time, my research, and my work. So if I find 0-Day and I walk out of your business and then I go use it to publish a speech or to get accolades or whatever in the industry, as a customer, you should be pissed because they're taking your work product that you paid for to go now profit upon, where it should be something that you get the decision as a customer, much to the dismay of the pen tester sometimes, but you as the customer should actually be the person that's working hand in hand with them to do coordinated disclosure to the rest of the industry to make sure that that piece of, or that flaw or that piece of code that's affected is properly taken care of. We do have to do some coaching. Sometimes we get customers and they're like, you found 0-Day in our systems. We never want that published. We never ever want that out there. Fine, you're paying us. We will work hand in hand with you. But we always try to coach the customer to look, this is software that's being used by 120,000 other businesses in America. You have an opportunity here to be able to help them all be more secure as well. This vulnerability or issue we found is something we should disclose as a partnership to better enable everybody else to not have the same weakness or problem. We have MFA. So again, we have a firewall, we have whatever, we have MFA. This has been the most recent one that we've been listening to probably for the last 5 years. Everybody loves to tell us that, they're not worried about their password strength because they have MFA. They're not worried about how often people change their passwords because they have MFA. They're not worried about blah, blah, blah because they have MFA. Somehow, magically, MFA is going to cook their dinner, clean their house, do all these other things. It's ridiculous. The truth is that MFA has become quite easy to bypass in a lot of examples, and it's something where we regularly, as part of our work, go up against clients that are leveraging MFA to protect external-facing services, specifically in the cloud. And it's crazy how humans are still humans. If we do a push to their cell phone, we can sit there and recover their one-time authentication code. If we send them an email, they'll click the link to be able to take the next steps as part of their authentication. Never mind the fact that they've had MFA for a year and a half and never once has an email ever been sent that ever told them to click here to enable their next steps in MFA. But if you send them that email once and they see it, okay, we'll go ahead and click it. It's amazing to me that people don't understand that it is just another layer of the onion. And if you are depending upon or relying on something like multi-factor authentication or any other kind of a service or solution without having other types of protections in place, you're just waiting to get compromised.
One more thing I'll add to that is how many of you, and I'm kind of similar to what I was talking about earlier, how many of you are actually sending MFA logs to your SIM? Actually monitoring MFA prompts, and then monitoring who got too many all of a sudden. Who had MFA prompt from a location different than their usual location. Some of the MFA tools will even tell you things like MFA prompt came from Virginia, but the device that responded to it was in New York. Monitoring stuff like that, finding those correlations, working on those, you can make your MFA even work better than it does already. Or how many of you are requiring MFA when you are in the network already? Mm-hmm. You've got MFA and that's great, but what about your internal threat actor? Can they move around the network without needing MFA? And you know what? MFA on RDP doesn't mean shit. When I was doing red teaming, when these guys are doing red teaming, they're not really using RDP to move around. Other services, other protocols like WMI, WinRM, your PowerShell remoting, they're not going to use MFA like you should use. So how do you stop that? That's where just having MFA is just, as Luke was mentioning, just one layer. It's a good layer. If you don't have it, go implement it. Heck, even have SMS-based MFA if that's all you can afford right now. But do something. Story time. This was another big consulting company, charged a shit ton of money and gave us an Excel spreadsheet as the pentest report. A lot of people already know what I'm talking about in there, what that report looks like.
Don't give them away.
Don't give them away.
Yeah.
So they pen tested us. I think it was like a 3 to 4 week long engagement because we had a very large environment. And I had just started this company. I think it was maybe like week 2 is when I was there, and they had submitted the report to us. I look at the report and I go, what the hell is this? Are they sending us a report? You already have the report. I don't have the report. No, you already have the report. That's an Excel spreadsheet. That's all they've sent us. So where is the evidence? And I look at the findings, 850 findings, right away my brain goes to, we are terrible. We've got a terrible environment. We got to fix things. There's 150 critical findings. Then I start looking at those critical findings. First of all, if it's 150 criticals, there's nothing critical. if you've got 150 criticals, then how are you going to redefine the criticality in there? So start looking through that, and one of the criticals is you have SSH on your public network, okay? Did you get in? No. Did you try password guessing? No. Did you see if we have public-private key pairs? No. What did you do? We pen tested it using industry standards, using OWASP top 10, and the whole spiel.
See the language? Does that sound familiar?
I was like, that's bullshit. No, you did not do that. So turns out it was just a vulnerability scan that they sold us. Now, that right there is a waste of money. Then the additional waste of money, we had about 30 people on our one management team. Those 30 people spent 3 months going through that Excel spreadsheet, identifying false positives and findings that they don't really have any impact. They spent 3 months. Each one of them was paid at least 60, 70K. So just imagine how much money was spent doing the project and then responding to that project just to find out what was actually actionable things we need to work on. And there were a few things they had in there that were useful, but we already knew about them because we were running our own vulnerability scans. So they were fired. Now we're going to work with them again. I want 10 findings, 15, 20 findings. I don't want hundreds. Give me stuff that is impactful. Give me stuff that is actually going to have an impact in my environment. I've got an older version number. Well, my Nessa scan tells me that. I'm not really interested in you telling me that. Maybe tell me how you would exploit that old version number.
Yeah, how is it vulnerable? How is it valuable?
How's it valuable?
Yeah.
Show me the impact. Show me how you use that vulnerability to get to my CEO's inbox. That's what I want to see. I want to see the impact because I can take that to my infrastructure team. I can take that to my CIO and have them fix that. So I want quality. Risk ratings help me prioritize. Help the client prioritize what they should fix first. If you've got 10 criticals, 20 highs, 50 mediums, that doesn't help me. Out of those 10 criticals, which one should I fix first? Yeah. One of my former employers, I loved when they did this. Anytime they got a critical finding from a pen tester, they would spin up an incident response call. They considered a critical finding as an incident. They would spin up an incident response call, and we had a 7-day SLA to fix every critical. And every morning, we would jump on a call, talk about what we've done to try to fix it, and what's slowing us down. Like, that is what critical really looks like, not 150 that didn't let you in.
The other side of the coin, and where this is fun, and why I put wonderful Rachel Reagan up there with her awesome gold medal breakdancing, is that she represents a lot of the companies out there that we go head-to-head up against in this industry. Real story from earlier this year, actually, I guess end of last year. Akil, he's one of our pen testers. He's been pen testing now for about 2 years. Guy taught yoga and wellness for 30 years, decided he was done with it.
He presented here last year.
Yeah, that's right. He did a really cool course on wellness here last year, but decided he wanted to go into pen testing, and he's brilliant. He's done it really well. But again, 2 years of experience. We have this big client that we've been trying to win for a long time, and they work with us in all these other arenas around infrastructure, everything else, but not for offensive security. And I sit down with the corporate leads of this company, and it's like, we have a great working relationship with you. Why don't you use us for pen testing and this other stuff? Oh, we got this awesome firm. These guys are fucking rad. They're the best. You know, all ex-military, just amazing. They've been doing our pen testing for 5 years. And we've gotten to a point, we have 0 critical findings. Nothing in our network. Every time. We're solid. We don't need the help. We like our partner. I go, let me take the Pepsi challenge. How about that? You got a bunch of money with us already spent. You've got money in the bank. Why don't we pull this small little piece aside, and Q and the team, at that point he was working for us, Q and the team can take a look at it and see what's really in your environment. How many minutes did it take?
Like 10 minutes?
Yeah, 9 minutes or something. Akil had domain administrative access within their Active Directory environment because of broadcast protocols and lack of SMB signing. Do you know why they thought that they were doing great? Because the team that was doing the work for them for 5 years' time wasn't actually doing any work. Just like Q was saying, they're running scans and producing a report, but they're not really digging in. Lack of SMB signing, broadcast protocols, these types of attacks, these are the first thing that any attacker that ever compromises your environment in those types of AD networks, it's the very first thing they're going to do. And the fact that for 5 years of pen testing, they had been paying for a company that had never even tried to compromise them this way is embarrassing to the industry, embarrassing to the client, and a horrible waste of money. So again, don't get stuck believing that just because you have an A, you actually have an A.
That's you.
Pen test at night.
Pen test at
okay,
night.
yeah, pen test at night. Can you please pen test us at night? We don't want to disrupt our business. Hackers don't care about your hours. And even moreover, as an attacker, I want to attack during the busiest time of the day. Because one, there's more signal to noise ratio on the environment and the network. You may not see my traffic, you may not see my activity. But the other part is all the stupid human tricks are there. All the humans that you can get to click things or do things, or that are communicating with the server, or passing their hash some way, or downloading a document or whatever, those people are part of this bigger picture. And when you say, we only want you to run the pen test at night, let's just do it overnight, you're taking out about 50% of the overall attack surface that we would be looking at in a traditional environment or network by doing that. Have people do the work when the work is being done. Q put a good comment on here about the production impact myths. I've been pen testing, hands-on keyboard, since 1994. Well, I guess the last 10 years I've been a bit of an executive signing checks, but the point being is that in all those years of testing, I can count maybe on one hand the number of times we've actually taken down a network or a critical service. It is an extremely rare thing to have happen. And honestly, if the person's worth their salt and they're doing good pen testing, the last thing in the world they ever want to do is break something to where they can't access it. Because why would you compromise a host just to take it down? Like, you want to compromise that host to use that as a pivot point into the rest of the environment so you can compromise everything else. So the whole idea that pen testers are going to come in and break my network is kind of a rare thing to actually have happen if you're working with capable, talented people. Anything else you want to add on this one?
I mean, if I can take your network down with a single computer, that's a finding.
Yeah, I've had people argue before. A great one, had a bank in New York. They had old hubs.
Oh.
For you kids who don't know what that is, that was before switching existed, and a hub would grab traffic and just broadcast it everywhere. Well, the great part was if you daisy chain two hubs between each other, and then you do like a ARP attack, the traffic between the two hubs goes to where the utilization of the hubs absolutely max out, can't route traffic anymore, network goes down. This massive, massive bank, a French bank in New York, I don't think I've said too much now, they had this happen in the middle of a pen test. And it's one of the, count on the, one of the fingers on the one hand thing, that this occurred to me. And when I went and I sat down with the CSO of this bank, she was incredibly livid. And she's like, how did you guys do this? Why is this happening to me? You took out an entire floor of people that were doing trading. That's millions of dollars that we're losing per minute. And it's like, why are you mad at me? You're the one running equipment that's 30-something years old that hasn't been patched, hasn't been updated, and it's apparently critical to your core infrastructure. That's a finding. The fact that I was able to take this down unintentionally with a common attack that would be leveraged in almost any kind of compromise of anyone coming into your environment, you should see that as a finding. We need to address this. The recommendations I'm going to make are all about how you need to take next steps to upgrade to appropriate infrastructure and appropriate hardware configured appropriately for what you guys are trying to do. But I love how the client got mad at us for running hubs 30 years later.
So we've got about 10 minutes, so I'm going to be a little quick in this. This is a pretty common thing. on the receiving end of the SOWs, statements of work, quotes from consulting companies, and they'll tell you it's going to be $50,000, $100,000, $150,000. And I look at those three quotes, well, what's the difference? You're all saying you're doing the same work, then what is the difference? Tell me, how much time are you going to spend on this? What are some of the things you're going to be doing? If your SOW is just half a page, then that leaves a lot of room for questions, that leaves a lot of rooms for discussions, and it leaves ambiguity. I want to know the details of the work you're going to be performing and how much time you're going to be spending doing that work. And how much time are you spending on project management? One last thing on that. If you don't have a project manager, I don't want to work with you. I was a pen tester myself in the past, and we cannot be trusted to get shit done on time or stop doing it. We will not stop pen testing if nobody told us to stop pen testing. So you got to have transparency.
You ever want to have fun, go to DEF CON in a room like this when you're speaking, a couple thousand people, and go, how many of you fall on the spectrum or have attention deficit disorder or something else? And it's like the entire room, right? Project management can be very helpful because you've got incredibly brilliant people, but that doesn't mean that those incredibly brilliant people are going to be good at managing their time, specific tasks, client interaction, those things. So to Q's point, absolutely critical. This one's fun. We change our provider once a year. I get this all the time. People call me up, hey, it's that time of year, need a new pen testing company, I'm collecting bids. Gonna take 5 bids, gonna pick the lowest one that I think is credible and worthy of doing our work, and then we're gonna do the pen test. The problem with doing this, and the old mentality around this, by the way, this comes from like the late 1990s, early 2000s, when pen testing companies had 2 or 3 people with them. The idea was that you'd switch pen testing companies so you got a fresh set of eyes on the problem, right? Kind of made sense when the industry was small. Now you talk to pen testing firms and they've got 100, 120 different pen testers that are all unified working together. You probably are doing other engagements with them and have all this other stuff. That intimacy and that tribal knowledge is priceless. And when you go and buy a new pen testing company each year, you're going, pen test me. And they're gonna come in and they're gonna go, okay, great. Lack of SB, signing, broadcast protocols, standard stuff, here's your report, fix it, we'll see you in a year. And then the client takes it and goes, okay, we'll do some of these remediations and fix it up, and it's now time to do a new pen test. Okay, new pen test company that just came in the door. Do a pen test for us. Okay, great. Lack of SMB signing, broadcast protocols, here's some other shit to fix.
Same shit.
And it just continues to be this cycle. And just like we have on the picture up there, it's like wiping the board clean year over year. So when you have that kind of mentality and you're taking this type of an approach to security, you're actually erasing a lot of the good work and a lot of the knowledge and a lot of the effort that's been put into trying to help you year over year. Instead, occasionally test your partner. If you get with a good partner and you like the results you're seeing and you think that they're helping move you forward, maybe every 3 years, have a third party come in and validate their work, right? There's nothing wrong with doing that, but you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So, we've talked about a lot of problems and a lot of headaches we have. Let's do one slide on solutions.
All right, so main thing I would say is be a partner, collaborate. When we have these guys come in, I'd rather just give them all of the information that I have. We were having a discussion recently. Every year we try to kind of look at our vendors. Who are we going to continue to work with? Who are we not going to continue to work with? And one of the questions always comes up is, how are we going to have this new vendor, if we bring in a new vendor, how are we going to have them get to know us the way our previous vendors know us? The relationships we built, the information they have about us already, or rather they come in the next year, already know our passwords from previous year, and start with those first. I want to know who in my organization is using the same password or similar one like last year. I'd rather they already have enough intimacy to go and talk to my sysadmin directly. Say, hey, we found this issue, let me show you how I exploited it, and then how you can fix it. I'd rather they have that intimacy with my team. So that collaboration, that partnership is important. And that needs to start at sales conversations. A lot of the issues we talked about in here, like scoping, for example, a lot of that has to do with communication. Like I mentioned earlier, we are talking at each other. We are not talking to each other. We got to talk to each other. We got to get to know each other and work together.
One of my favorite things that I've got some customers we've been working with for several years now, and we take a different approach with them. I love in this industry, we go out and we go, customer, what do you need? And the customer goes, I want pen testing, I want application security, I want social engineering done, I want security awareness training, I want you to do a gold image review of what we're pushing out to our customers and clients. And then we write all of it up and we send it over to them and they look at it and they go, fuck, I can afford like a fifth of that. And it's like, right, so we just spent weeks of time asking all these questions, going all through all this shit to put all this together for you so you can look at it and say you can't do it. How valuable is that to you or to me? So what I've started doing with customers, especially customers that we have a pre-established relationship with, is I go, what do you want to achieve and how much budget do you have? And then we back a solution into the budget that gives them the most value for the spend, the effort, and the energy that's being done. Now I know that sounds crazy, right? Telling a third-party provider how much your budget is. But it honestly makes it to where I spend less time and I make sure the things that I'm putting in front of you are truly meaningful and valuable.
A good partner is going to find more issues and solutions in your environment in a 1-hour conversation than a bad consultant will in 40 hours, right? We'll get to questions in a minute. So just partner together, get to know your security providers get to know your clients, and just talk about your problems. Put things on the table, be transparent.
Yeah, I think the last thing before we open it up to questions is the top line here. Collaborate. Work with the people that are coming in to try to help you. Don't look at them. One of the most frustrating things as a pen tester or as a hacker is to go in to do work for a customer and to have the customer go, we want you to take a black hat approach. We're not going to give you any information. We're not going to tell you anything about our environment. You need to hack it and show us what it looks like. Well, then I explained to him from the other side, it's like, okay, you've got 40 hours of time that you've spent for this pen test, and we're about to blow 24 hours doing open source intelligence and vulnerability gathering for shit you should just hand to us. Like, save yourself the money, save yourself the hassle. If it's stuff they can publicly find anyway, give it to them.
All right, so that's us.
Couple questions. I saw one there.
Yeah.
Or comments. Go for it. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Yeah, so what's standard practice for you guys? You do the tests, you deliver the report, and for the customer, like myself, the value is in the report, right? Like, I want to see what my findings are. I want to see what the recommendations are for remediation. I want to remediate them as quickly as possible. Hopefully, you can retest them before you've moved on, right?
Sure.
So what do you guys typically do for a retest? Do you make that part of the engagement so that you're coming back 2 weeks later? Do you make it part of the engagement so you're just going to do it while you're there testing?
I used to force it down people's throat. It was built into the contract. It was something you paid hours and you paid time for. And then we started having issues competing with other firms and companies that didn't do remediation testing or follow-up, that did just point of execution. I'll tell you that now the big thing that we do around that to really try to help with it is that we add it as an optional service. You can buy this bank of time for this amount of dollars, right? And it's something where we can come back at any time. But that gives the client the flexibility to be able to do the remediation on their own terms and then be able to re-engage with us to come back in and do that work.
I mean, I want to know every single minute, every single hour you're spending on my work. So if you are putting in hours for remediation testing and the pentest report comes around and there's no findings, I just wasted money. So I'd rather have that conversation separately, separate SOW for that.
Yeah, it's huge. It makes a big difference.
One more question before we get STFU.
Anybody else?
Stufu.
I can't see because of the light, so I'm assuming that we have no more questions. Well, again, here's Q and my contact information if you feel safe enough to scan a QR code. I promise this one is not one of the ones I do to hack people. But please hit us up on Facebook, LinkedIn, all the other types of places. I'm old. I still use Facebook.
Part of MySpace.
But yeah, thank you very much for the time today.
Thank you all.
Again, thank you for coming to RVAsec.